Welcome back to Untold Physio Stories podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Dr. E, with Modern Manual Therapy and Edge Mobility System. And, every year since I live in Buffalo, New York, I release a video on how you should shovel snow. I'm pretty specific on this. I say that you should lunge forward, except weight on your leg, and then rotate on your opposite leg and not on your forward leg. Rotate on your back leg. So you're rotating on your hip. Tense your core to protect your spine. When you're rotating on your hip, when you're lunging, you lunge down, get weight on your front leg, and then lift up using your legs and less using your arms and your back. And I know some of that is unavoidable, but at least it minimizes it. Also, you take frequent breaks, do lots of backward bends, and that's kind of what I post every year. So I'm sure you guys have seen the news to date this podcast. There has been about 3.5 foot of snow in Buffalo over the Thanksgiving week. And then just this past week, we got maybe another 6 to 12 inches, depending on where you live. So I woke up yesterday not really feeling that great. A lot of my family either has like a cold or a cough, and I woke up kind of feeling achy, like really, really mild flu-like symptoms. My head hurt, but I didn't really have a fever. I had a bunch of appointments, and I wanted to kind of rush and shovel the heavy, wet snow as quick as I can before my first appointment. So I get out there. Of course, I'm cold, not warmed up or anything. I'm shoveling, and I'm rushing, and I'm not necessarily doing the things that I say, especially the twisting part. But at one point when I got to lunge and really quickly kick the shovel in with my front leg and bend forward quickly, I had an episode of what most lay people would call throwing their back out. I didn't throw my back out. I shoveled my back out. It was pretty sharp. I mean, it wasn't a 10 out of 10, but it was central lower lumbar pain. And it was about an 8 out of 10, and it really kind of took my breath away. So I immediately stopped. I mean, I knew enough not to continue going. And, I hobbled, and this is actually caught on my Nest Cam. I hobbled between the two vehicles because I was behind my truck. I hobbled between my wife's truck and my truck. And I tried some backward bends. I was maybe able to get to neutral. I'd have to recheck the camera, but then that actually made it a bit more painful. I ended up having to use the shovel like a cane. And, a few years ago, I'm pretty sure I podcasted about how I prevented an onset like this after shoveling for at least 7.5 hours. When we got that 7.5 feet of snow, it was pretty much 1 hour per foot after my truck had been buried. And I did similar things, but then I didn't actually have the acute onset that took my breath away and made it almost unable to walk. I mean, I crawled into the house pretty much, and I immediately got prone on elbows. Prone on elbows helped quite a bit, but my extension was super blocked. It relieved quite a bit of the pain, but every time I tried to extend, I pretty much had zero extension. So I laid in bed, got on my H-Wave eStim device, and laid like that for an hour. That relieved it quite a bit. I was able to extend maybe 20-30%. I took it easy the rest of the day. I actually did end up taking I broke my fast earlier than normal. I had some oatmeal and took some ibuprofen because also I had, at that point, my flu-like symptoms were not feeling, or I was feeling that anyway. It wasn't necessary for the back pain, but more for the flu, and I wanted to kind of calm that down and mitigate that as well. I again took it easy for the rest of the day. I pretty much laid in bed on and off 2 applications of the H-Wave about an hour. I was able to start some mild trunk rotation. Had my wife do resisted trunk extension on me. Initially, when she tried it, I was able to push maybe what I would call a 1 or 2 out of 5, without having a dynamometer measure the amount of force I was able to push extension and standing in a stride stance. That's one of the things I noticed on patients with the most chronic low back pain. They couldn't push at all, which really led me down my rabbit hole, if you followed me recently on social media, I posted some stuff about extension strength and extension isometrics for chronic low back pain. There's a good amount of older evidence, but it doesn't mean that it's not worthwhile or worth your read. So I've been working on being able to hold extension isometrics for up to a minute, working on that extension endurance. But it was definitely the pain that probably inhibited my extensors. I mean, I wasn't in a lot of pain, but I just could not push into extension at all. So retesting that by the end of the day after the 2 applications of H-Wave and a lot of rest and actually canceling all my appointments for that day or rescheduling them, I was able to push quite a bit harder. I can extend maybe about 50%. I'm still quite a bit blocked. It's the next morning already. I'm standing at my work station, my battle station at home. But I really wanted to talk about, mainly how I mitigated this. If I had gone to work, if I had kind of insisted on, seeing my patients and, not losing revenue, I feel like I would have been at where many patients get at, where they just try to continue with their day instead of actually taking time to themselves, with the rest, with also resting from like flu-like symptoms. And I really attribute a lot of that pain modulation to the H-Wave. I think that thing is great. You guys should look into it. I don't work for them. I don't have any kind of agreement that if I promote their devices that I get paid any kind of affiliate. But it's been quite a blessing for not only some recurrent low back pain that I've had in the past, I've talked about that in the past, but also for some patients that have been really stuck and I couldn't get them loading until I slapped a couple electrodes on them, turned it on high, and then actually tried the loading strategies. I don't use it passively. I was walking around with it yesterday as well, trying some flexion and extension movements, and it's great at modulating pain. There's a difference between that and a TENS. So really, the moral of the story is if you have a flare-up like this, try to get into extension. I think one of the big things that helped was me lying prone for a bit and then getting prone on elbows as soon as I can, and then working on extension isometrics and restoring extension as much as possible. That is key, especially with an acute onset of low back pain where the mechanism of injury or what triggered the whole response was flexion. It's 9 times out of 10, it's going to be some sort of flexion and twisting. You might need a unilateral load, but like a side glide or a rotation if you have unilateral issues. But for me, it was central and lower. And I've never experienced anything like that before. I didn't have any radiating pain, no buttock pain, nothing into my legs. It was just central, low, and sharp. So I hope this helps you guys out. If you have any comments, questions, and if you first time listen to the podcast, you haven't done it yet, please rate Untold Physio Stories 5 stars wherever you listen to podcasts, especially Spotify and Apple, as it helps our discoverability. And as always, you guys have a great day.